He said, "What did you expect?" I said, "Pity, I suppose." He said, "I have no pity for you, Eliza. I have admiration. There is a difference." I loved him for that. I loved him for 41 years, until he died. We had 4 children. All 4 survived. I raised them in a house full of books and conversation, and I made certain that not one of my daughters grew up believing that a woman's only value lay in what she could do for someone else. I saw my mother once more when I was 23 years old. I did not seek her out. I was passing through that part of Tennessee with Thomas, who had business there, and someone who knew my family recognized me and told me my mother was still living in the hollow, that she was not well. I went. The cabin had not changed much, a little more weathered. The kitchen garden had grown smaller. Clarence had married and moved away. I did not know this until I arrived and found the cabin occupied only by my mother and a neighbor woman who came to sit with her in the afternoons. My mother was 55 years old, and she looked older. The years had been hard on her, or perhaps she had always been this old, and I was only now seeing it clearly. She wept when she saw me. She held my hands and told me I had grown beautiful, that I looked well, that she thanked God I was well. And I sat with her for 2 hours, and I said the polite things, and I listened to her talk about the years, about Clarence's marriage, about the neighbors, about the small events of the hollow. And I waited. I waited for her to say it, for her to acknowledge what she had done, for her to offer me the one thing I had wanted from her for 16 years. She did not. She talked, and not once did she say, "I should not have done that." Not once did she say, "I am sorry." Not once did she even acknowledge that there was something to be sorry for. As I was leaving, she held my hands again, and she said, "I always knew you would manage, Eliza. You were always such a capable girl." I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about telling her what I thought of that, what I thought of her using my capability as a retroactive justification for what she had done, as though the fact that I had survived proved that her decision had been acceptable, as though resilience in the victim excuses the person who made the wound. I did not say it. I was 23, and I had built a life worth living, and I did not need her acknowledgement to go on building it. I had stopped needing that somewhere between the wagon ride in the schoolhouse and the walk to Knoxville. "Goodbye, Mama," I said, and I walked back out to where Thomas was waiting with the buggy, and we drove away, and I did not look back. My mother died the following winter. I received a letter from a neighbor informing me. I wrote back a brief note acknowledging the news. I did not attend the funeral. People have asked me, over the years, whether I forgive her. It is the question people always ask. They want forgiveness to be the ending, because forgiveness makes a neat story. The wound, the suffering, the healing. People find it uncomfortable when the story ends without the healing, when the wound simply becomes a scar that you carry forward. Here's what I tell them. I do not carry hatred for my mother. I have not spent my life consumed by bitterness toward her. I built something real. I loved and was loved. I raised children who are whole and unafraid. I have known joy. But no, I do not forgive her. Not because I am unable to forgive, but because forgiveness requires the other person to have understood that they caused harm. My mother went to her grave believing she had made a practical decision in a desperate time. She did not believe she had done anything wrong. You cannot forgive someone for something they do not believe they did. She sold me for a bag of flour. I was 7 years old. I had a cloth doll with button eyes and a braid tied with a rag, and I climbed into a stranger's wagon because my mother told me to, because she had already received payment. That is the fact of it. That is what happened. I have had a good life despite that fact, not because of it. The good life is mine. I built it myself, out of the competence I developed in that cold kitchen, out of the books Miss Forrest lent me, out of the $1.60 I saved coin by coin, out of the decision I made every single day to be someone, and not just girl. I'm 81 years old. I've outlived my mother, outlived Pruitt, outlived the man who sold me my first bag of flour when I had a household of my own and could look at the clerk across the counter and pay my own price. There is a particular satisfaction in that, in standing on the other side of the counter, in knowing what things cost, and being the one who decides whether to pay. I know what I cost. I was 7 years old and I cost 50 pounds of flour, some salt, and 3 strips of dried pork. But that price was set by someone who did not know my value, and the rest of my life has been the work of proving her wrong. That is my story. That is all of it. Eliza Ann Decker, born 1844.